Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for coming, and welcome to Illinois Doge. My name is Chris Miller. I'm the chairman of the Illinois Freedom Caucus and also the state representative for the 101st District. You know, we're 18 days away from adjournment and likely to vote on the largest bloated budget in the history of Illinois at $55 billion plus. That's approximately 40% higher than it was 6 years ago when Governor Pritzker came into office. Far above, and another little fun fact is far above even the rate of inflation. Right now, we have no idea what's in the budget, and even most of the Democrats don't even know what's in the budget. If history repeats itself, which we can expect that history will repeat itself, there will be more taxpayer abuse, more spendocrats spending out of control money. As usual, the budget has been drafted in secret. It'll be dumped on the last day of session, most likely in the middle of the night. No time to review. And what we can expect is there'll be more taxes, more borrowing, more spending, more regulation. We need to make common sense common again when it comes to the budget. We need to return to a measure of reasonableness, and we need to turn to fiscal sanity when we approach this budget. Unfortunately, most of the time, at least in the past, that the media has been complicit. It's been business as usual, while the Governor Pritzker uses word salad games to explain this all away and how it's all going to be okay and all going to be better. So where does the money go? The money goes to non-governmental organizations, to social engineering projects, to Cadillac healthcare for illegals, and to DEI education that's failing our students. Today, we're here to identify programs and projects that have wasted over $1 billion, and that's the reason why Illinois Doge has been created. In a little bit, we're going to hear from Representative Davis and Representative McLaughlin to give you a snapshot of a budget that outlines some real reforms. Wouldn't that be a novel idea? We need a full audit on the big ticket items, especially Medicaid, education, child care, preschools, to make sure that the people are receiving this money actually qualify for them. And one thing that we do know is we've seen at the federal level that the deeper we dig, the uglier it all gets. And with that, I want to turn it over to Leader Halbrook.
Thank you, Leader Chairman Miller. I'm Representative Brad Halbrook of the 107th District of Shelbyville. Today we're turning our attention to a staggering amount of taxpayer money, over $1 billion, that's being funneled into political connected non-government organizations or NGOs. This wasn't uncovered by government watchdogs, but concerned Illinoisans and Republican legislators that our grassroots effort we call DOGE, or the Department of Government Efficiency. Before we show you where the money's going, we need to ask one simple question. Why is government funding NGOs at all? First, there's no transparency. NGOs aren't subject to the Freedom of Information Act or FOIA. Taxpayers can't see how their money is being spent. Just last week, a lawsuit was filed because the state refused to release a contract detailing how much public money was being sent to specific groups. Second, the budget language is vague and on purpose. These grants are buried under broad terms with little or no detail. Lawmakers are being asked to approve funding without knowing how the money will be used or even who's getting it. Third, the human services budget has been hijacked. It used to mean helping seniors, helping single mothers, and people with disabilities. Now it's packed with programs for politically aligned groups offering vague services like parent mentoring, immigrant support, LGBTQ advocacy, and many are race or identity-based initiatives that serve political agendas, not real need. Fourth, this spending undermines real charity. Faith-based groups and private charities are being pushed aside while politically connected NGOs scoop up taxpayer dollars. The government is picking winners and losers and rewarding those who keep the majority party in power. Finally, there's a better way. We're not saying that all nonprofits are bad, but instead of blank checks to the politically favored groups, let's support people directly. Help families, the disabled, and others in need, then let them choose the services that work for them. And with that, I will turn it over to Leader Niemerg that will walk us through where the money's going and who's benefiting.
Thank you, folks. Thank you, Representative Halbrook. Thanks for being with us here today. As Republican spokesman on the Immigration Committee, I want to discuss the irresponsible spending on illegal immigrants here in the state of Illinois. A recent report from the Auditor General confirms significant mismanagement in Governor Pritzker's taxpayer-funded, again guys, this is taxpayer-funded health care program for illegal immigrants, revealing fraudulent enrollees and spending which vastly exceeded projections, some to the tune of 300%. Instead of suspending these programs, the governor wants to continue this spending into this coming budget year. You've already heard a lot about NGOs already today, so let me give you a quick example of a non-governmental organization directly affecting the immigration issue. The Indo-American Center, we have some flyers here, some boards here. This organization exists to, and I quote, this is their mission statement, emphasize the importance of civic engagement in the form of voting, census participation, and advocacy in the immigration communities, regardless of their immigration status. This mission statement directly contradicts federal law and comes at, again, the taxpayer expense. This is a disgrace and a prime example of what should be cut in this year's budget. The state of Illinois has spent billions, $3.2 billion. We're looking at a $3.2 billion deficit hole, all because of the illegal immigration issue. That never should have happened. But the hard reality is that much of this money is long gone. The choice we have to make is, are we going to stop the flow in a year where we have yet another tight budget due to the Democrat overspending? We should put Illinois citizens first, not illegal immigrants. And if you look here, fiscal year 24, state budget, $6.755 million in commitments. Fiscal year 25, $4.55 million in commitments. So it's something we drastically need to look at. Now, next, I'd like to introduce Representative Willhauer. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. State Representative Blaine Willhauer. I just want you guys to look at this stuff. Look at this stuff and, listen to these guys. Listen to all this going on and all that money being spent, and sit here and tell me that Illinois has a revenue problem. Clearly doesn't. We don't have a money problem. We've got a focus problem. We've got a priorities problem. We got too many heads in the trough that care more about their own little programs than they do the working folks in this state they're just doing their best to try to get by. I came in here in 2019. And J.B. Pritzker did it at the same time. And J.B. Pritzker has increased spending by, I think, $17 billion, which, like Representative Miller says, about 40%. And, the question that you guys need to be asking, has anybody's quality of life really increased with all that spending, with all these programs, and with all that time? I don't think so, not unless you're an illegal immigrant. No amount of government spending is going to fix a system that's built on a foundation of fraud and lies. DEI, that's what a lot of this stuff boils down to. It's a fraud. Reasonable people know it. It's being defunded at the federal level. It's been put at the forefront of every agency and every appropriation in this state for basically the last generation, and it's failed. And the burdens of those failures, they are always borne disproportionately on the people that can afford it the least. And that bears out in Illinois. Illinois is focused more on DEI than anyone in America, and the result is that Wallet Hub just came out and said that we're ranked dead last in the country when it comes to racial equity. But when DEI and equity, when they're the end goal, the first casualty is always going to be excellence. That's just the way it works. Look at our education system. I'm the minority spokesperson on K through 12 appropriations. We're spending more money than ever in our education, and our proficiencies are in an absolute crisis. 80 schools in this state where 0 kids, not a single kid, is proficient in math. 24 schools in this state where not a single kid, not one single kid, is proficient in reading. 30% literacy rate statewide. That's a systemic failure, and no amount of money is going to fix it. But you know, there are other states out here that are ditching the DEI. They're getting back to the basics. They're focusing on science of reading. States like Mississippi, you know, Mississippi's got a diverse population. Their socioeconomic standards are much lower than ours. They're spending $12,000 per student, and they have the fastest growing literacy rate in the country. Illinois is spending $22,000 per student. That's a big difference, guys. So, you know, as we get to the budget, you know, in the next couple of weeks, I think that one thing that we can implore J.B. Pritzker to do is cut the fat. But when you get so bloated, it's not easy. But the time for easy answers was a long time ago. I want to introduce State Representative Martin McLaughlin.
Thank you. So I'm gonna, Jed Davis. So Jed Davis and I have been working on an alternative budget. I'll let Jed start and I'll wrap up. So Jed, go ahead.
Perfect. Yeah, it's very easy to sit and complain kind of about the state of Illinois, which is why I'm grateful for the representatives that stand behind me and the work that has been put into the boards and all the information that you've seen to date. I've been working diligently as well, kind of in my office, burning the midnight oil, and tomorrow plan to release a proposed budget. I think there's a clear path down to $44 billion that is not painstaking to the people of Illinois, and also putting $1,500 back into the pockets of working families. Again, we do not have a revenue problem. We have a priority problem. And man, this money isn't ours, it's yours, it's the people's. So it's time to put it back into their pockets and live by a simple principle, which is spend less and live better.
Thank you. So I'm State Representative Martin McLaughlin, a little bit north of my friends here behind me. I've got Cook County, King County, Lake, and McHenry. What I've witnessed here in the past 5 years as a small business owner is the level of money malfeasance that we're looking at here and describing. It boggles the mind. The type of excuses in accounting that are used down here would put any private sector CFO or accountant in prison. We're once again discussing where we're going to get the last minute billions of dollars of, and I love this, revenue enhancements, or as I call it, demsplaining for tax increases. It's a lot like mansplaining, but only worse for everyone. Big secret, guys, the budget hasn't been balanced for years. I wish the media would understand the difference between spending and balanced. If the governor next year decided to spend $100 billion and taxed us for that, guess what, guys? That would be, in his term, balanced. But what's really been going on is increases in spending, as my colleagues have been talking about, so far out of whack that we've got a real problem in Illinois, and it's called out-migration. And the real problem is the Democrats down here and the governor doesn't understand what our government job is to be. It's to get out of the way and let the private sector, let families, and let individuals live their lives. Instead, they try to get in at every level, and what you end up with are programs like this, where somebody's brother-in-law has got a P.O. box somewhere in Chicago, and they're making out like gangbusters. This is what Democrat majority is trying to protect. You know, the governor is big on identity politics in this state. I wish he'd stop identifying as the President of the United States and going to Mexico and all over Europe and start identifying for what he truly is. He's the governor of a failing state. We've been growing two things in Illinois. We've been growing government jobs and Mayflower and U-Haul's profits as we've sent people out of the state because we're not giving them a reason to stay. I'm very proud to have worked with Representative Davis on a budget, and to his point, there's anywhere between $5 and $10 billion that can be saved. They'll be screaming and yelling and crying. It'll be from these people and everyone that backs them. The taxpayers in this state are desperately crying for it, and I'm very proud to be up here today. And with that, we'll answer questions. Thank you.
Looking at this list, and I've kind of gone through Illinois' checkbook and opened the books as well, looked at different nonprofits. Curious your thoughts on, you point out the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Illinois. There's also a Mexican Chamber of Commerce. There's a Mexican-American museum that's free up in Chicago, but it gets hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars. That compared to, say, the American Lung Association, which I think gets like $2 million a year or so. That's a nonprofit as well. Is it just going after all nonprofits, or is it kind of picking and choosing which ones are appropriate and which ones are not?
Well, the first thing is that Representative Miller mentioned, how do you audit these non-for-profits when they're not bound by the same rules and regulations that state agencies are? It's hard enough to get the state agencies to cooperate when we ask for FOIA requests. I mean, there's the speed in this world, and frozen ketchup or slow molasses is where we get this stuff back from these government agencies. We need to have the ability to go into these agencies and have them respond, and the current structure doesn't allow us to. So, although your question is great, we can't get information from the spending from these agencies in the way that we need to as legislators that oversee the spending of our tax dollars.
Well, just to correct me, it was 5.8 million the American Lung Association got last year, so I'm curious what they're going to get this year. To the budget proposal that Republicans have put together, you said 44 billion. Where's that difference in $11 billion? What do you guys? Is it all of these non-for-profits? Is it?
Yeah, no, it's a mixture of a lot of things. I mean, there's a lot of things in our budget. You go through the last 2 years, I mean, you're tens and tens and tens of thousands of line items to go through. So there is a lot of areas that you don't need to whack $5 billion from one thing, but you start whittling things down, a lot can add up. A little can add up to a lot real quick. And that whole document, I've got about a 30-page document that will drop tomorrow, and we'll answer all those questions. So I would say stay tuned for that.
But are there certain state agencies that would have significant cuts in your budget proposal?
Yeah. Again, I think there's ample opportunity to cut, and I would definitely recommend holding tight for tomorrow. It will all be in everyone's purview, and you'll be able to read every word you wish.
Well, you guys are talking about migrant spending. I'm sure you were happy to hear during the governor's budget address that he was cutting a significant amount of that spending by getting that certain age group out of it. Of course, there is another portion that will receive funding in this budget, but what are your thoughts on cutting a significant amount of people out of that free healthcare service? Obviously, the Latino Caucus hopes to bring it back, but I mean, it seems like a done deal that it's not going to be in the budget this year.
Are they Illinois citizens? Are they U.S. citizens? We've got people that are really struggling in this state. We have the highest property tax burden in the country. We have the highest state and local taxes. We need to prioritize our own people first. And really, J.B. Pritzker has a lot to thank Donald Trump for that. I mean, he's closed the border in the 5 months that he's been here. They're stemming the flow of illegal aliens into places like Chicago. So that's doing a lot of the work. But at the end of the day, we can talk about all these numbers and do all of this, but until we get away from the social engineering and start doing real engineering, start building things in this state, we're going to have trouble. And if we're going to do that, we got to fix a lot of systemic problems that we have that nobody wants to deal with around here. Like I said before, the easy answers were a long time ago. It's going to take tough people to come up here and right-size this stuff, because when you start talking about this stuff, when you start talking about defunding some of this nonsense and fixing our structural problems, you're going to get attacked by a lot of very powerful people that don't have the best interests of the Illinois citizens in mind, because they're profiting off of this stuff. So until we get into that, until we start tackling that, we're going to have these problems. And J.B. Pritzker is never going to tackle that. The Democrat majority is never going to tackle that. We need to do something different.
Where do your colleagues outside the Freedom Caucus stand on your budget proposal? Have you talked to them about it? Some of the more moderate GOP members?
Well, for the record, I am not a Freedom Caucus member. However, I appreciate what these gentlemen are doing. Oh, sorry. For the record, I am not a Freedom Caucus member, but I am a person that believes in controlling spending. So, to your point, I am one of those people, just to make sure the record is clear.
Where does your caucus leader stand, though?
I have no idea.
This list of NGOs, is that an incomplete list just to fit on the board, or is there more?
Yeah. So there's dramatically more. Okay, and this is.
How many more? Almost $44 million.
Yeah, well, we know there's at least $1 billion. We talked about that in the opening. There's at least $1 billion, and there could be more. But this is just a sampling. You can kind of pick out why they're there. Again, the question is, and I think this heat map is really, really important over here too, that shows where the bulk of these funds are going. Okay, and I know you're going to say, well, they're going into the large population centers, but the churches in my district are not getting any of these dollars. The non-for-profit, any other NGOs in my district are not getting these dollars. These dollars are going into certain districts across the state of Illinois. And I think this is what's interesting is this slide here talks about the Indo-American Center, right? And so at the top, it talks about one particular line item, how it's in the budget, but you've got to go through, pull this stuff all out, put it on a spreadsheet, do the alphabetical search, and then you find out that they're receiving $14 million in total. So while one item may look like a few $100,000, there's literally tens of millions of dollars that are going to these single entities. And what's interesting is these functions, if like this Indo-American Center, those 4 or 5 bullet points are all functions of government. But we don't have any accountability with the Indo-American Center, like Representative Leader McLaughlin said. We don't have any accountability. They're not subject to FOIA, and so these are bad deals for taxpayers because we don't know that these functions are actually getting done.
This kind of makes me reflect on the Neighborhood Recovery Initiative. Do you guys remember that from
Correct.
the Cohen administration?
Right.
It was like right before an election, money was going out to local nonprofit violence interruption groups, but then, find out bloated salaries and a whole host of other things. I can't remember how that, kind of blew up, but I mean, what do you think it's gonna take to get to, highlighting how your guys' concerns are that this money's going to politically connected groups with no oversight, and it could be going into the pockets of people to get out to vote or, conduct politics rather than government services?
I think it absolutely is. A lot of this stuff is going to community organizing groups. There's a specific goal is registering voters and getting people out to vote. But guys, this is the work of just a few people, that have diligently put all this stuff together. Imagine if we put the full force of a reform-minded government behind digging into this stuff, forensically auditing this stuff, and getting to the bottom of it. So, you say that, there's only 40 of them or so on here. Well, that's the work of about, 3 or 4 very diligent, independent, private citizens that are putting this stuff together. We need the government to go in. We need part of our job in the House of Representatives is supposed to be oversight. We're supposed to be overseeing stuff, but all we're doing is rubber stamping things to political friends.
Talks about K through 12 education. I'm curious to hear any of your thoughts about the proposed evidence-based funding model for higher ed. Very intense committee hearing that multiple of us covered. It seems that bill is, kind of on ice right now due to the U of I's strong opposition. But many of you have EIU in the backyard. You have U of I right there. What are your thoughts on that?
Same principles. It's the same principles as K through 12. I mean, on the higher education, they're spending more money than almost anybody in the country, and our tuition rates are so high that we're basically funding the SEC schools. How many people in your neighborhood? How many of your top academic people in high school have gone to the SEC? They go down there because the tuition is remarkably lower, and they actually have economies down there that respect them when they get out of school. We need to prioritize getting Illinois students to stay in Illinois, but we can't do that because these universities, they come here and they cry and everything about, I had a bill a couple years ago that wanted to mandate University of Illinois, which is a land grant university. I wanted to mandate them to get to 80 or 85% Illinois students. We're funding them, but they want zero to do with it because they can get a lot more money from out-of-state folks. They can get a lot more money from their international folks. So, until it's like everything else, until we get to focus on Illinois citizens first and all of this stuff, we're going to continue to struggle. It's the same problems everywhere. It's priorities. It's not money. It's priorities.
We got time for one more. All right, thank you guys.
I do have one thing I want to add to this is that, we've talked a lot about priorities, and one of the things that nothing's going to change here in Illinois until we get the political courage to actually do something about it, put our so-called money where our mouth is. But right now, all we do is lie, deflect, massage, manipulate the numbers, manipulate the story. But Illinois has a vision problem because we need to have a vision to compete to be number one. We need to look at the drivers that are driving people out of our state to Tennessee, Texas, and Florida, and we need to adopt some of the same policies that they're adopting to bring people back to our state. to lower the tax rate, to lower the corporate tax rate, to make sure real estate taxes are reasonable, that all of our fees and services are reasonable in line with these other places that are stealing our citizens away from us because they're going to a place where there's more opportunity. And until we have the political courage to do that, guess what? When you start to trim the pork, the pigs start to squeal. And that's what we're going to see when these things get exposed. The uproar is going to be deafening. And so we need to orchestrate a real change in our vision and what we're trying to accomplish. We put Illinois citizens first. We put Illinois businesses first. We put Illinois families first. And guess what? Voila, you're going to see massive structural changes in the state of Illinois and the way we do business.